Hello everyone. Today I'm going to give a presentation about the book report that I recently read for this whole semester. And the book name is The Questions and Answers. The subtitle is Practical Advice for a Piano Teacher by Francis Clark, who is the founder of intervallic piano teaching method and also the author of textbook The Music Tree, very popular and famous using in America area. Like the title suggested, questions and answers, we can easily tell this book is full of different questions from all around the world. Piano teachers ask Francis Clark and seek for her advice and answers to help them to have a better teaching experience. And I think the conclusion is I highly recommended this book for piano teachers for reading because this book is covered many useful questions, and the answers by Francis Clark is full of insightful and meaningful and definitely benefits from us if we can grab some of the ideas and trying to transfer to ourselves applying our piano teaching. Yes, and also being as a piano teachers, by reading this book, you will find a very interesting thing is there are some questions that you might have during your own piano teaching. But more interestingly is there are some other questions that might you have never ever think about it, but some other people have the questions, and that might be a great chance for you to get inspired by some of them to adjust your own teaching skills. So I think it's really great for us to exploring from this book. So today I will talk about some of the chapters that I think really interesting for me personally to share to everyone. And let's get started. Here is the general contents of table this book including totally. So this book in total you have 9 chapters, and each chapter is focusing on different aspects. Here I list some of all of them. The chapter 1 is the thoughts and attitudes about teaching, which I think everybody if you are teaching piano, you should read this. And second is chapter 2 is the lesson plans, assignments, very usual. And chapter 3, fundamental subjects that you have to learn what is the fundamental things from your teaching and how it could be detailed, applied for your students to learn. And chapter 4, basic skills, that including position at the piano, scales, arpeggios, chords, pedal, memorizing, practicing, phrasing, performing. And chapter 5, teaching methods for group or private students, repertoire classes, which is studio class, and recitals and festivals. Chapter 6, students, that including transfer students, adult beginners, early childhood, and pedagogy programs. But this chapter, I might think, due to this book published a little earlier, like in 19 something, so probably things gonna change. But we can still read this to understanding the history of the pedagogy as well. So it's also good. And chapter 7 is the repertoire for choosing, which I think, well, there are in this chapter a lot of questions is about some specific pieces, but during the teaching has some problems because of the different students. So really interesting to read that. And you can also think about yourself trying to learn this piece. Would you have the same problem as the students might have? Because we are also students as well, being as the teacher at the same time. And the chapter 8 is books and reference works, and chapter 9 is the business of teaching, which we just talked about during the pedagogy class. And this book has more detailed information about how would you concern what you're gonna apply, like using for do the preparation your own business, being as the piano teacher. Okay, so let's start with the part that I think really interesting and useful, or just think about it. So let's start with chapter 1. Like I said, it's thoughts and attitudes about teaching. Here I choose, there's the one question says, when students cry, what can I do? And for the first time I read these questions, I connected to my personal experience. Is me as the student, I used to cry during the piano lesson. And being as the teacher, I also observed some of my students, they are a little bit frustrated during the my teaching. So here is the suggestions by Francis Clark says, what can we do? Especially for what can I do? So, and I think it's really interesting that the first question, the first answer from her is to think about the students didn't get enough sleep. This one is that I have never ever think about before, and now and after I read this, I think it's really reasonable because we all know sleep is really important for our daily working and daily life. It's crucial part. So that needs to be considered definitely as the first point. I think is really reasonable. And second is coming down with an illness. That's that could be. And also, number 3, he or she had something go wrong at school. As we all know, some of our students they are still in school every day. So that could possible. So this gave me a lot of inspirations. And had a fight with a friend. I'm so surprised that she can have so wide thoughts about surrounding the student's life, not just focusing on the piece or focusing on difficulties of the piece. Really nice. And the lastly is has not practiced enough and feels guilty about lack of preparation. We can't think about it as well. So I mean by this, I starting to open my mind to think about the reason why students are not good, are not performed good in the lesson. Okay. The second question is cancel lesson for lack of practice. That can be connected to the last point that we just talked about. Is he or she feels guilty about lack of preparation, so he decided to cancel it. That happens to me as well. So in the book, it says it happens to almost everyone occasionally for good reasons. Illness, being out of town, paper due, exaggerate. Students do not want to come with a guilty heart and want to escape unpleasant experience. That's reasonable. So, being as the teacher, Francis Clark mentioned, our first job is to make them feel comfortable about coming for a lesson without preparation. I was totally amazed by this point. Because it's not the usual common thing discussed in my life. Like we are assumes that students must prepare well for your lesson, but I never think about being as the teacher. The first job is to make them feel comfortable if they do not prepare well. That is ability from the teacher, I think, to adjust your piano lessons to become meaningful no matter the students prepare well or prepare not well. So following sentence, the secondly, you make the students comfortable, and the secondly is to make the lesson too productive. They will be glad to came. So here the things could be you being as a teacher, try to transfer to a good practice session. That still works for students to teach them how to practice with efficiency and with the specific goal to reach, not just repetition. That's definitely for sure. And the third question in this chapter, big versus small music. So as we all know, the students came to you and I want to learn Chopin Etude, I want to learn Bach, Prelude and Fugue, I like C major, that one, blah blah blah. They are technical demanding, really. And even being as the pianist who learned piano for almost 20 years, I feel difficult at the very beginning part. How can I teach the students with that kind of big music dream? That could be happen with the long consistency in learning, that's for sure. But if the students come to you and with the very big wish to learn that kind of music, Francis Clark is suggested to persuade him or her to study with easier, or we call it small music. That actually there are many amounts of small music really worthy to learning compared to the big music, like popular music in piano area. So like she said, it is an inevitable. Young people are not ready to be aware that any good piece of music beautifully played is a big piece. This is the key point. Small piece could be played as big piece, same sound quality and beautifully, but they have no idea how can they approach it. So she suggested, and I think it's really reasonable, is whenever possible, is let the students hear what he calls small works played by great artists, or even the teacher ourselves. Okay. Chapter 3, I want to share the question, like some key points from this chapter. The first one is ear training. That should start every beginning of every piano lessons, which I personally apply this approach already. Is I highly requires my students to using their ear to hear what they are playing and tell what is the difference between each time they play, and knows well why the sounds comes from your ear differently due to your finger approaches differently with the different articulations, something like that, or you playing the slow movements or fast movements. And you should have ability to know you are playing something wrong instead of rely on teachers to tell you you are doing something wrong. Okay. And the second thing is, Francis Clark do not put major emphasis on scales for beginners teaching. It's been a long time that people always said, oh, you should start practice C major scale and D major scale, G major, F major, like with more and more accidental notes for practicing. But well, scales are arpeggios. These kind of things are not so much you have to do to develop the skills or techniques. There are also a lot another techniques such as the practice of legato third and fourth, consecutive fifth, sixth, and octaves, fast repeated notes, voicing diminished seven. This chord practicing at the same time training your ear is also very important. So skills are important. It's important, but we should be careful not to neglect other areas of students' technical development. So for us to apply this approach, I would say it's not easy, but let's just say make the skills a little behind other things that we can consider, as I just mentioned, those kind of things. That also helps students. Okay. All right. Chapter 4, I want to share is the basic skills, and in these chapters there are a lot of questions like how can I teach the arpeggios, chords, some technical specific issues, and they are really, really detailed methods due to different situations. So please read it. Really useful. And in here, I want to share two laws, teaching laws from Francis Clark mentioned in this chapter. Number one, never send students home with pieces that contain any element or skill they have not already mastered. So that means during your lesson, you need to making sure each class, the things that you guys approach is with the specific clear goal, and the student has ability to practice it by him or herself with your guidance, with the piano teacher guidance, and also teach him or her how to practice before they go to home. You should aware being as a piano teacher. And number two, never send students home with a piece without capturing their interest and excitement in this piece and giving them a sense that they can master it easily. See, this is very complicated for me because first of all is you should pick the piece that students like. And the second thing is you should avoid to give them a sense they can master it easily, because that might cause them to not practice with attention and focus. But so you should balance it, because if once the students like it, there are some situations might lead to students think it's very easy. Might be, I'm not sure, but so choosing the repertoire is really very important, both from instructor and students, with a good communication each other instead of one person to decide everything. Then it's communicate for sure. All right. The third point in this chapter I want to mention a question is student stop when make a mistake. So I faced a lot of that situations a lot. And that is because I understand from this book, is Francis Clark said, usually that because teacher allows that behavior at the beginning. Well, I looked back at my teaching. I think, yeah, it was because I allowed them. I think about maybe next time he or she do not make the same mistake. But the thing is, the reality is they would do that over and over again. And after 2-3 times, I become a little rushed, so I kind of want to stop them and trying to tell them, well, you should not stop, even though you faced the mistake, but there is a little bit too late, and that needs me more repetition with that, and things gonna be better. So, and here also the sentence says, not just say keep going, staying things through the mistake. Being as the teacher, you can play with the students when they face the mistakes and helps them to keep the sound still smooth, just in case they are influenced by the strange sound by their mistakes. And if necessary, hold their hands on the keys. This is what I did as well, is to prevent that inevitable return to beginning. You hold them, and yeah, you really don't want them to start at the beginning. This is for preparation for during the stage. They have the habit to starting at the beginning, and this is gonna not make things getting better, I personally think. So yeah, concerned about it. All right, the chapter 5 is about, let me see, teaching methods, and especially talk about the differences between group and private teaching, and how to organize studio class for students, and what is the meaning of students playing studio class, and how could they benefit from each time of studio. There are a lot of specific questions as well. In chapter 7 is the teaching pieces. I also mentioned at the very beginning is there are lots of very specific pieces that they ask. For example, here with the score and some teachers might have, why my students never makes the like the with the tight notes, makes his or her fingers on the tight notes, but replay it, and how can I approach to solve the problems. So, and how to face the rhythm differences from some dance, Ginastera rondo pieces, and handle easier pieces, hidden a lot of composers pieces. How can we teach? So we can also expand our teaching repertoire from this book as well. If you see some interesting spot and you kind of want to experience from you and your students for now as well. So that would be a good way to explore more pieces for your teaching. And the chapter 9 is the business. One needs to be concerned, and this is a lot of more details. Like I said at the beginning, is you should prepare something like the enrollment, interviewing beginners, and interviewing transfer students, parents. Should parents involved in your teaching sometimes? Some you can do, some you cannot do. And what if parents ask, when should my children practice? How long should his practice period be? And something like that. Parents guide, contact with parents, really specific, including social skills. Parents are not serious about piano study. I have never think about these questions in my teaching, but after reading this book, I have a lot of questions seriously in my mind due to different situations. 45 minutes or 30 minutes lessons. How about the students ask you to increase lesson time? Parents reject contemporary music. Really interesting spots. And right, changing teachers. Like keep being as the piano teacher. Do not judge other teachers. This is the really kind habit. Yeah. Well, yeah. Some other Casio keyboards to buy something. I think this is all from this book. So this is the end. And I also suggested we should read this book for sure. And in general, this book surprised me is the last point is there are a lot of thoughts comes from Frances Clark, the amazing woman in this book, was in 1983, 1991, something that before 2000, these teaching thoughts that. So what I'm saying this is these thoughts are really early present by her, and which all of them are such a great ideas that all the piano teachers should learn from that and teach their students with that kind of thinking related. That makes the piano teaching more healthier for students, and also students can really enjoy their piano learning, to learn something from music and satisfy themselves from playing piano. So that's all. Thank you for listening.